going to put this here. Woo! Hi. Thank you for that amazing intro, Glenn. I'm going to set my timer really quick because 45 minutes tends to be a little, I want to make sure I'm on time. Because at Toastmasters, we make sure we're on time. So we respect the audience and respect ourselves. It's just an incredible lesson that I've learned in my 2-year tenure at Toastmasters. As Glenn said, I am a media producer and have been for over 8 years. I started as an actor, so speaking is not new to me. However, personal branding became a big passion in my life when I first started acting. Because actors think they can do anything, right? That's their job. You can play any role. And it's true. But when you're out there networking and you're out there putting yourself in the world, you have to know who you are, because that's who the casting directors and the producers and the directors are hiring. If you can do your job is one thing, but who are you as a person? I'm really excited to be doing this presentation specifically because when Glenn and Joser invited me to speak at Personal Development Toastmasters, I got excited because I love personal development, but I also got excited because they said they didn't want it to be a branding session on Toastmasters. They wanted it to be for you guys individually to be able to create your brand, which is totally my heart. And you'll get to know that, I think, today in this presentation. And for the last 15 days of the month, I have been doing a Toastmasters tour and going around to different clubs and helping them find their identity as a club. You guys have your identity. It's personal development, which is really exciting. And so let's get into personally developing each and every one of your brands. I heard an interesting statistic today, and it is that when you're out there selling yourself or selling a product, it's 80% why and 20% how. Think about that for a second. When you're doing your personal branding, what is your why? That's something we're going to go to at the end. Does everybody have a handout? This packet here?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. This is the presentation. These are the things that I would like for you to get out of today. But before we get into that, who here thinks branding is colors, fonts, and logos?
Part of. Yeah.
It's absolutely part of it, but it's the marketing part. How do you come up with your fonts, logos, and colors?
By your branding. Emotions.
Based on who you want to target.
What emotion you're trying to...
So if you do it the way Joser's saying, based on who you want to target, then you're showing up inauthentically.
Nice.
And if somebody comes to you and they're inauthentic, you can tell, correct? Who here can tell when someone's selling you something? Who here hates it? We sell things every single day. And it's interesting because I used to be allergic to the word sales until probably 2 weeks ago. Because for me, it had this negative connotation of someone coming at me, trying to manipulate me and have me feel the way that they want me to feel. But in reality, when I'm selling something like myself, I have no problem with it because I know who I am. Because I'm not manipulating you. Listen, my favorite color is yellow. Yeah. But there's a reason. There's a big reason that I brought my favorite color into my own personal brand. And that reason is I feel like the world, when we become 18 and we graduate from high school and we go out into the workforce and we get a job, we become beige. You show up, you're in a beige office, sitting in a cube, talking on a beige phone about beige things that aren't feeding your soul. And if you show up for a professional interview, at least, well, guys have it a little better because they can wear a tie of a crazy color. But when you show up for an interview and you're wearing something other than black, gray, beige, tan, navy, maybe burgundy, boo.
sure.
Burgundy's a little out there, which is why I threw burgundy in, by the way.
My
So-
favorite color.
There you go. But do you guys see what I'm saying? You show up in the world the way the world wants you to show up. And I feel like it's an epidemic. And so when I started to create my own brand, I decided very adamantly to fight against it. And I thought, well, my favorite color is yellow. What better way to fight against beige than yellow? And then I realized, as I went deeper into who I am and who I want to be in the world, I love A-line dresses and I love retro looks, so I brought it into my brand. But it only works because it's me. And it only works because I don't want to be like everybody else. And that's part of my brand. So today I want to take us through the steps that I took and that I've helped other people take to really get to the heart of your brand, so that when you do decide on what is being presented to the world in fonts, colors, and logos, it's authentic to you and you can show up with real passion behind those things. Okay? So the first question that you are going to want to ask yourself is who? Who are you? And I really want you guys to go home and look at these questions and think deeply on them. Because I truly believe the world needs every single one of you to show up the way you are. I don't want to see any more beige. Please, unless beige is absolutely your favorite color, show up in the way that you want to show up. So who are you? Who can answer that question for me? Who can tell me who they are? Hi.
You just came in great.
Welcome. I'm Jenna.
I'm Ed.
Nice to meet you. Welcome. Is this your club?
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, then you already know the game. So who are you?
I'm Ed Lambert, a member of the club.
Nice.
Love it.
I love it. So when you leave today, when I ask you who are you, Ed, you're going to have a very different answer, because I want you to really think about who you are. Carol.
Yeah, and who you are. Something you just pointed out with what you just said was, I always show up in bright colors.
Mm-hmm. And she always wears yellow when I'm doing a speech, which I appreciate.
It's who I've been since I was young. I'm outgoing. I love people, and the colors make me feel what I attract, and I do attract a lot of positivity. So
Yeah.
It's okay.
Absolutely. And when you started, exactly. And Carol, by the way, is her brand. Like, she's part of my club EBP, and there's no question, Carol shows up and you know she's totally authentic. But when you first started showing up like that, it's a little scary, right? It's really scary because you're like standing out in the crowd. And in our society, we're told not to do that.
And I've done it all my life, and everything I've ever done, I've never been one to wear solid, plain colors. Where when I come in the room, everybody knows.
That's right. That's
No matter
right.
what I've ever done, and it's okay.
Absolutely.
That's who I am. And it's, like you said, it's a little bit to society sometimes, but then luckily they see that I'm authentic. They see I'm a real person, and I really do care, and I do love brightening people's lives. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what happens? Yeah, thank you, Carol. That was really great. What do you guys think happens, and it's very obvious to me in the world right now, what do you think happens when you're being forced to be something you're not?
You're not coming across as authentic, so to piggyback at her point, I don't like bright colors. I would never wear bright yellow or pink shirt, dress shirts. That's not me, and I would actually feel uncomfortable because it's not really me, so I know who I am.
Absolutely.
Therefore, I'm not going to wear those bright colors because I know what makes me feel comfortable and what doesn't. Otherwise, I come across as very unauthentic, or people can see through it.
But because you do that, because it's it's how you're comfortable, you're not resenting the people who show up in the bright colors. And that's my point. The world, I feel, has an epidemic of resentment because we're so suppressed sometimes and not allowed to be who we truly are, that if you were forced to wear dimmed colors but you really wanted to wear yellow and you saw me, you would resent me, whether you're aware of it or not. And those little tiny resentments grow to be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you just hate the world. I mean, it's really, to me, that kind of a problem. Daniel, you had your hand up to talk about who you are. Yes? Did I see your hand?
I am confused.
Okay. Do you have a question that I can help you clarify, or you're confused in the world? Ah,
In the larger sense.
Okay.
I invite confusion because confusion leads to awesomeness.
okay.
When you're confused and then something becomes clear, it's suddenly awesome. So I am an awesome person, and so are each of you.
That's true. That's true. I would invite you to use the word questioner. You're a questioner. You're maybe not confused because you're very aware of your confusion, and so by definition, you're not confused.
No, I'm always looking for that black hole where reason becomes non-existent. Because through that is a white hole where new understandings evolve.
Excellent.
I'm going to piggyback on what Daniel said.
Yes.
I like questioner better than confused. I like seeker even better.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yes.
Very interesting. I like really the way both of you are saying that. I grew up around computer science when computer science was just being born. And the number one problem everyone has, I mean, when you talk, I talk in computer science, when you go into a client and they say, my company's having problems, could you fix it and computerize it? Nobody ever asks why. One of the first things they did, you know, my dad's team, is that they would go in and at every level, in every department, go ask the same question. Why do you do what you do? And almost no one has an answer.
Well, we're going to get to
And
that.
that's
It's very
our-
interesting.
That's our job. That's my job. That's my life.
Well, and the only way you can understand why you do what you do is to know who you are.
Exactly.
So that's why it's the first question. And the next question is, who's your team? Who's your team in your company? Who's your team in your family? Who's your team in your friends? You have to have a team around you to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, correct? So who here can tell me the number one person on their team? Glenn.
You?
You're talking about public relations. I'm like, your number one teammate is Carrie, but for public relations. I'm sorry, Carrie.
More than me lately.
Well, that's because this month we have a very specific goal. This month, it's a good point though, this month we have a very specific goal in the PR team at District 52. And so Glenn and I probably have been talking more than Carrie and Glenn, which is unfortunate. Which is why when you're looking at your team, you have to be very specific about which area of your life you're looking at. Because your teammates are going to be very different. Catherine is a really great friend of mine, just so you know. And she's part of my friend team, hands down. I have another friend, and we actually talk a lot of business when we're talking to each other as well. So she kind of overlaps. I have one friend who we only talk about business. And then I have another friend we never talk about business. So it's very specific, but if we're not aware, and that's my goal today, everybody, it's just to get us aware of how we're showing up in the world and these questions that we can ask to help define that. So who's a member of your team? I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Udo,
Udo, nice to see you.
member of my team.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my family,
Okay, is there someone specific in your family?
my daughter, probably.
Nice. And she, you know, whenever you're having a family issue, you can go to her and she's there and she's a member of your team. That's so important to have. Who here doesn't have that?
With family or do you doesn't have that support?
Either. Yeah. Whether you don't have a team defined in your family, in your company, in your friends, you don't know exactly who to go to for support. What if you go to someone for support and they're just the wrong team member? That happened to me last week, and I was like, Oh, right. Yeah, you're not part of that team. I forgot. I forgot that you have no idea what's going on in that world of mine over here. And so I put this like pressure on this person that was unnecessary, and they were unable to help anyway. So it was like they felt bad, I felt bad. It was a situation. It didn't last long because Toastmasters has taught me how to effectively communicate. But it did happen. And it was because I wasn't being present and aware of who my team was.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, some of us who are fiercely independent kind of have like, pull yourself out of your bootstraps and do what you got to do. I mean, I have a great family, well, a wife and daughter, but I don't go to my wife out of misery with me.
Okay.
It's not because we don't have an unhealthy relationship. I mean, if I was unhealthy or I was sick, of course I would go to my wife, but my wife wouldn't come to my mind, my daughter wouldn't come to my mind, even my own employees who I hire. It's just because that fiercely independent, I do what I got to do to make it work.
So you're your key team member, which is important to realize too.
Perspective, but I kind of am in that perspective.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I want to be really clear. There is nothing wrong with you being your key team member. It's actually a very evolved way of being, as long as you're able to give the support to yourself that you need. If you're getting the support, great. If you're not, then you might want to look at building a team.
Your first point, who are you? That is knowing who you are and knowing the implications of that. For example, walking into a state bank dressed as you are would, and if you were interviewing for a job, would probably not add to your, would not enhance you. Okay, so knowing that, when you're asking about the team, though, I'm not sure what your point is.
So let me back up a little. It's a really good question. My goal with this is personal development. So I assumed that, and this is probably a wrong assumption. First of all, I would never interview for a bank job because I know who I am, and it's not what I want to do. So to answer your question about the bank job is, if we know who we are, we can go and get jobs where we're going to fit and where we're going to add value and where our souls are going to be fed.
It goes back to what you were saying about not targeting the people
Right.
who come across unauthentic.
Right.
You're basically saying have your life meet you where you are, as opposed to you trying to fit yourself in certain things.
Exactly. And for me, I have my own personal brand, and I consult, and I do things on my own. So I basically have my own company. So I get to create the brand around my company. But if you're somebody who's looking for a job, then you're going to go, let's use the bank as an example. If you're going to show up at a bank, it's going to be a job that you want. So you're probably already going to fit into that environment. Or it's a negotiable. But knowing the company's brand is going to help you really well too. Like if I showed up at Google, for example, I would fit right in.
Right.
If I showed up at Wells Fargo, I might wear a suit with an orange tie because that's part of their colors. But I would wear a suit because I want to be in banking. So that's who I am. Like a bank job would be great because you don't like bright colors, right? Not saying that you want to work at a bank, but as an example, So it's a great point.
No, I was asking though about the team.
So the team.
What the point is about what is the point you're trying to make about?
So we in Toastmasters are here to be leaders. And when we're leaders, it's oftentimes more than not that we're going to be creating a team. And so if we are going to be creating a team, then we need to know that we're creating a team. You don't just show up, because this has happened to me before too, before I realized it's my responsibility to create this team. You show up for a job and you get put in a management position and the team already exists, and you're just kind of floundering around trying to figure out how to get this team to be more effective, when in reality, you have to create that team and make it effective. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Great. Awesome. Did I answer your question? Thank you. Yes, Carol.
Oh, I was just going to feed on to atheist one.
No, it's fine.
Like, who is your team? like me and Gabrielle, we've been together for a long time. She's part of my team, and then she attracted
Absolutely.
Andrew, which brought us to bring the Toastmasters Club together. I mean, because I knew the players in the team. I'm not computer smart and all that, but Andrew is, and so is Gabriella. Andrew has talents in how to put these things together. We have him on the team. We have Gabriella, she's all the legal genius, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you need the team, so I
Absolutely.
know who's on my team, so that no matter what, we're gonna make it work. We can make it work because of who is my team.
Absolutely. That's a really great point, too. When you guys are really thinking about who you are, list your skills and list them without ego, because it's not, like Carol just said, she's not computer savvy. Fine. Find someone who is.
Yeah.
If you don't know your strengths and weaknesses within who you are, you can't build an effective team. So thank you for bringing that up. Yes?
So, to sum it up for me, satisfy my confusion.
Seeking.
You're seeking.
The question on team is, what talent do I need so that I can focus on using my strengths?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you. Thank you for summarizing that. I appreciate it. So the next question that you're going to want to ask within the who framework is what Joseph was talking about, which is super important. It's just not the first thing, and that's who's your audience. And you're going to be able to find your audience more effectively when you know who you are. If you're building a personal brand, you want to build a personal brand, correct?
Correct.
When you're building your personal brand, your audience is you 10 years ago.
That's an interesting thought.
Because you're going to want to speak to the people about what you've learned in the last 10 years.
I need curious people.
There you go. You need seekers. Yes.
I need seekers.
You do need you absolutely need seekers. I'm sorry, I already know him. You absolutely do. And philosophers.
Transfix two letters in the middle.
So knowing who you are and who your team is, because if your team is solid, they're also your audience. So you can start to create a very specific audience profile from the things that you love, the things that you care about, the things that you're passionate about, the things that your team is passionate about. Everything that you do once you know who you are all the things you want your audience to do. Because if I were to go and try and present to bankers, for example, thank you for that example, by the way, because they're exactly the opposite of my ideal person as a group. Granted, within those bankers, there may be some speckles, but I'm not going to I'm not going to spend my time and effort specifically on targeting bankers. I'm going to spend my time and effort most likely targeting creative people, which is what I do because that's the industry that I was in for so long. Because they're already going to understand me at a level that the bankers aren't. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to move on to the second framework, and that is what? Okay, you guys. So I started out my little lifestyle brand. It's such a funny story to me now that I've had that like duh moment. But I started this brand and I started blogging and I had all these ideas and I wanted to share with the world because sharing is like a huge part of my brand. And my brand, my word, and I challenge each of you to come up with a word that describes you. And it can change. I usually have a word that describes me in my brand and also a word each year that I'm going to focus on. This year it was 3 words, just do it, because I was getting in my own way. But my big word is empowerment. And the reason that came about was I would go to these seminars and speeches and listen to all these audios because I'm addicted and I love them. They make me so happy. And then I would get done, and with half of them, I would be super inspired. And I would go home, and then I would go, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And so I took inspiration with education, and that, to me, is empowerment. So it's not just being inspired to do something, which is the sharing part of who I am, but it's teaching and giving information and how-tos so that it's a holistic type of approach for me. So the what came out of, I did 4 years of sharing. I blogged, I was so excited, I was doing all this stuff, and I was like, I have no product. I literally have no product. So how am I going to sustain this as a living, which is my ultimate goal? And then I realized, well, you have to actually do something. You have to create something to sell, which I'm not, obviously not motivated by money, which is why I could not talk to bankers. I am so motivated by people getting it and going out and being who they are and infusing their personality. So sharing was like the best for me. And then I ignored the what. So the what is super important. And the first question in the what is, what do you do? What is it that you do? I just sit down. This one took me a long time. I know that sounds so silly, but it took me so long to understand what I do. And I was because I didn't know what I do, I was constantly being pulled into these situations where I was working for other people on projects that I didn't want to do, and I was miserable, completely miserable. So my backstory is the bulk of my work during this time when I was developing my brand is that I was producing film. I've never wanted to produce film. I came out here to be an actor in television. And I know for you, those of you not in the business, they're two very different processes and very different environments, more importantly. And so I would get on these film projects and I was like, what did I do? I would wake up, I would work 16 hours a day, I would bust my butt, I would be so passionate and emotional for someone else's project. In an industry I didn't want to be in. It was awful. I'm grateful for it. Don't get me wrong, please don't get me wrong. I'm very, very grateful for the experience because it led me to here, but I know I had that experience so I can say to you, please know what you do. Please know what industry you want to be in, and when you're in that industry, be very specific about it, and do what you love. I love producing. I really do. I do not love the independent film environment. So I will use my skills somewhere else and do the thing that I love somewhere else. So what do you do? Who wants to tell me what they do? Catherine, I'm so glad you raised your hand.
I write quirky, motivational poetry with a punch for Jesus freaks, spiritual snobs, believers busting to be better, and hypocrites hankering to be holy.
She can. So I'm glad she raised her hand because Catherine is someone who knows exactly who she is and what she does. And she's a poet, so her log line of what she does is my favorite thing ever. So Catherine knows exactly who she is, what she does, and who her audience is. Right? And it's all there when you ask her what she does, which is really fun. And eventually you guys will get there. We're not going to work on log lines today, but it's really important to have one and to know when someone asks you something, you can just automatically say who it is. And that's why it's so important that it's authentic to you. Because if you're caught off guard and you stutter when you talk about what you do, it's not good. People are like, well, obviously that was rehearsed. Do you see what I'm saying? And you're going to lose that person from your audience. So, Catherine, piggybacking on what you do. Oh, wait, actually, let's ask one more person. Who else wants to share what they do?
Who's trying to follow that?
After that?
Carol's brave. Carol's brave.
Spoke up.
Right.
Carol, what do you do?
I'm a wellness coach in the health and wellness industry.
I love it. Okay. So let's use these two examples to answer the next question, which is, what do you get? So Catherine, what do you get out of being I'm not going to go into your big, giant awesomeness, but your poetry and your acting?
I get fulfilled when I see other people get what they need out of life by what I've written.
Nice. Absolutely. See? So she knows exactly what she's getting. Carol, what do you get?
I get to be a life changer. I get to help people their lives every single day for the better.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so amazing. So do you guys see from these two examples, what do you get as a question? So let's change it around for those of you who don't have your brand specifically narrowed in. What do you want to get? All of these questions, by the way, can be turned around like that. If you don't know already, then you ask yourself what you want. And you just create yourself that way. Oh my gosh, I'm babbling on. I only have 10 minutes left before the Q&A. Okay, so the next question in the what is, what does your customer get? What does your audience get? What does your client get? And again, that question can be turned around. What do you want them to get? What would make you the happiest person on the planet if your customer wrote you an email and they said, oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing what you do. I got blank from it. Carol.
When they write you, what does my customer get? They get knowledge, they get self-confidence, they get courage, they get self-esteem. Yeah.
Absolutely. And look at how passionate she is about that. It's so incredible for me to stand up here and see someone talk about their company and their business that way. Thank you. Yes, Glenn. That's what I get.
I was just going to say they're getting exactly what they wanted and beyond.
So then I would ask you to go deeper. What do they want?
What each customer wants when they come.
What does your ideal customer want?
Well, like for instance, for Carol, obviously when they go to Carol, they want to be a healthier person.
Mm-hmm.
They've obviously haven't been eating healthy or being healthy their whole life, and here they have someone to actually coach them in some way. And they don't have really a lot of great expectations because they really haven't been physically fit. And then all of a sudden, she goes beyond that. It's like, oh my God, this is better than I ever expected it would be. Tell me more.
Absolutely. And it's interesting too, because as you're talking, I'm thinking about Carol. Carol offers multiple services at her wellness coaching. Catherine offers multiple things. She's an actor, she's a poet. So for example, what the director who's a customer would get might be different from what the producer who's also a customer might get from her acting, which is very different from what the audience is going to get. So she would be thinking about 3 different potential customers when she's thinking about what do they get. Yes?
How do you deal with the concept of divided target market? So you have people who know what they want, which is a smaller percentage of people. Most people have no idea what they want in life. So how do you, in an authentic way, how do you project a brand that services both people without making it seem like you're targeting one or targeting the other?
By showing up as you. Because if you worry and focus all of your energy on pleasing all different frames of your audience all